Hey everybody, it's Kat and Steve with the Positively Midwest podcast.
Before we get started, we're going to help pay some bills.
We have hooked up with Anchor.fm to help us keep launching Positively Midwest to as many ears as possible. The more we expand our reach, the more lives we can help inspire.
If you haven't heard of Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, and many, many more.
You can make money with no minimum listenership.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchorapp.fm to get started.
Now, sit back and enjoy the next episode of Positively Midwest Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Positively Midwest. I'm Steve Jurens, and generally across from me is my wife, Catherine. But she had to go and see her brother coach boys basketball, high school basketball, for the first time in a very long time. So I'm super happy for her, and that's very important. So she's got to go do that and support her brother. So you're going to have a solo episode with Steve Jurens, but also this is an exciting episode, number 52, and we've got a guy by the name of Jeff Dowskin. And Jeff, do you want to say hi to some of the peoples?
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here.
So this is pretty cool. We had this Steve Joyner gentleman hook us up, and looks like he does a little bit of cross-promoting and just helping people get their stories out there. And as I checked you out, you've got quite a few accomplishments. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Sure, happy to. I am going on 18 years or so professional stand-up comedian. I'm a digital entrepreneur. I was one of the very first people in my state to start a web development company, so that ages me a little bit. But I've been in the digital kind of innovative space a long time. Comedy's sort of my outlet to really kind of get out there and bring some positivity to the world and make people laugh. And with COVID, I transitioned that to podcasting and started the Jeff Dowskin Show to sort of bring all the things that I really love together: comedy, social trends, pop culture, and sort of kind of mesh that all together and give something that people hopefully can enjoy and listen to, while we're all going through this extremely weird shared experience.
Yeah, have you done other virtual things too? Can you do a virtual comedy show with video, or is anybody into that kind of thing?
A lot of people have been doing Zoom comedy shows. I like to say I haven't done any, but I'm not. But I don't know that I've been asked. But no, I kind of avoid. Comedy to me is kind of a real special thing, and it's interesting, and I think it's meant to be done in a certain way. And the Zoom, it's very uncomfortable, the type of comedy I do, to do it on a Zoom camera where you can't hear people. So much of what I rely on and feeds me when I'm on stage is that interaction and the response that you get. And with that missing, it's hard. It's hard. So, with the podcast, when I do my bits and stuff like that, I can put myself into the mode of being on stage. But the difference is I'm able to, with the podcast, kind of create a version of it that's the best it could be at that moment, and then put that out in the world. When you're doing live comedy, there's always those variances, and you have to pivot because you're hearing the people at that moment respond. If somebody gave you bad news before you go on, there's different things that mentally can throw you, or they don't laugh at a joke that always gets to laugh. There's little things like that. So the podcast is sort of a reframing of that, where I can kind of deal with it. But I actually started a live show that I started a couple weeks ago that I do every Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern time, called Crossing the Streams. And when I had started the podcast, part of what I originally was going to do was kind of talk to buddies of mine. And I had a couple of buddies of mine where we had a couple episodes where we talked about shows that we were binge watching, streaming. So we called it crossing the streams. and so we did that twice. And they, as many, I don't want to, I've had some fairly recognizable names on my show, but the one that I did with the two that I did with my buddies were very popular. Some of the more popular episodes, actually, And when I started to talk to them and I wanted to do more, and then I saw everyone doing live streaming, and I was sort of like, oh, that would be kind of fun to do a live stream. Because if it's like a show where it's your show, I'm just being me and entertaining, and it's almost like you're just kind of entertaining with the guests, and then people are watching that live. It's not me trying to make somebody in front of me laugh, the stranger. So to me, it's a slightly different dichotomy that I really enjoyed the idea of. So I got a couple other buddies of mine, Sal D'Amelio and Bob Phillips. And so the five of us, we got together, we each picked a show, we do some banter up front, and then we go in and we do recommendations. So it's sort of like a fun show. We do a little comedy-ish, and then we do actual recommendations of really good shows to watch. And so we're doing a third one. We're about to do a third one, and it's fun. It's good. It's been getting a good response so far. I think it's something that could have legs, but it's one of those things where it's like, you got to find the opportunity to really, do something. And, we can all just go crazy. Me getting out of the house is getting the mail. So it's like, so you got to do something to feel like you're giving back to the world in some way.
Yeah, we live in South Dakota, so they're a little bit more free range chicken around here. We can kind of still go out and about and move around a little bit more, and mask up, of course, there. But where are you guys located at?
I'm in Michigan,
okay.
Which we were doing okay for a while, and then it kind of hot spotted again. But now I was watching the news last night. Hot spots are pretty much the entire map.
Yeah,
is a hot spot. But we've been taking it seriously, and kind of not really going anywhere, and it's fine. I kind of, in a way, I enjoy it. I mean, thankfully everyone's been healthy. It's kind of nice to kind of take a break from everything and reevaluate everything. Stop yourself from the rat race of the day-to-day pressures that you put on yourself that the situation has put us in, to make us reevaluate certain things. So that's been one benefit to it, with unfortunate potential side effects. But if you can find one silver lining, I think that was it. But.
Yeah. I think we found some people were coming back to nature. They were going camping some more, going out to the lake, and it was good to see some of that, going hiking or whatever. A little bit more in our area, anyways, if they were fortunate enough to access something like that. But
I always feel guilty saying that, because I know you read stories where, this one person lost 5 members of their family. So they obviously are having a much different experience.
Yes.
Than I am, and so my heart goes out to all those folks. I can only speak directly to my experience, but in terms of the comments that I made, but I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I appreciate that. One thing that as I kind of, my brain sparks around sometimes, but you said about day-to-day pressures, and one question I wrote down earlier as I was learning about you, if you will, was since you've been in stand-up comedy for like 18 years, do you feel there's any truth, and this might be more personal for me because I have done this, I do this, but where there's some truth behind comedians are sometimes the sadder of the people inside, or they might have come from a rougher childhood or something like that. It seems a little cliche, but do you find that in your profession now that you've done it for quite a while?
Yeah. I think probably any acting or anything like that. But I mean, when you look at some of the funniest people, and there's so many tragedies, like Robin Williams and others, that the laughs kind of hide the pain. And I once said to someone, I said, I feel like I wasn't messed up enough, and she just kind of laughed at me, and she goes, you're messed up enough. Your problem is you just don't realize. And so, it's like that. But yeah, I mean, someone the other day was like, "Oh, you're different on stage." And yeah, I mean, because when I'm different, I'm on stage, it's kind of like what you said. I mean, I'm not hiding the demons or anything, but it's like I get on stage to be a different version of myself. It's still me, but it's, an exaggerated version. It's a freer version. It's a moment where it's not in a selfish or conceited kind of way, but it's about me. You know what I mean? It's like where you can get your voice out and you can do your thing. Mm-hmm. And, that's what's so interesting about it. When I step off stage, I decompress, right? So, I mean, I'm not like that off stage. I can be like that on stage. And if someone came up to me at the bar after at a club, if there was such a situation, pre-COVID, but, I'd just sitting there with a coffee, sipping it, going, hey, it's like, people always, it was funny because the person was kind of thrown off a bit because I was so different just talking one-on-one. And I'm like, if I was just hyper in a normal conversation with everyone, no one would want to be around me. It's like, can you imagine? Okay, Steve, we're gonna do that. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my god, yeah. It's like I find like when I talk to comedians on my show, it's like sometimes I describe those are those are the interviews that I do where you can learn about me too, because those are real conversations. They're not, people doing bits back and forth. Sometimes a comedian will throw out a silly joke, but in essence, it usually kind of gets into an actual conversation. And when people ask me about comedy, it's like sometimes afterwards I have to go like, oh, I apologize. You probably weren't expecting such a serious answer to your question, but it's like there is a seriousness to how you go about it, and being so methodical about it that the end result is humor, but there's a lot of strategic thought that goes into how to do that,
So with you having being in comedy again, you've probably had to deal with a lot of rejection, and have to have a lot of patience before you start to, I don't know, get comfortable up there, or I don't know if that came immediately for you, but how'd you stay positive through some of those transitions?
It's always, you have to just keep doing it. And there's always going to be ups and downs with comedy. I remember the first time I got on stage, the very, very first time, it was the greatest experience ever. It really was. And the second time, greatest experience, even better than the first time. And the third time, this is a quote from my wife after the show. She goes, "Oh my God, if that was me up there, I think I'd be crying right now." I mean, that's how bad it was. Wow. It was so bad. And everyone said to me, it was like, they're like, "Oh yeah, that always happens around the third, the fifth show. You just crash." And it's like, but every time you have a bad show, you don't learn anything from the good shows. Let's put it that way. It's the bad shows that kind of teach you how to better yourself for the next one. And so you have to have those experiences. Otherwise, you're solely very unprepared for later. It's like when you start out doing comedy, you're a master of ceremonies. You're the first guy. A lot of times they consider that's the guy that takes the bullet, meaning the crowd is not warmed up. You go out there, you do the best you can do, and you get the best reaction you can get. And sometimes you get lucky and sometimes it's mediocre, but sometimes mediocre for the first guy is the best you were going to do. You know what I mean? It's like you're pivoting that audience from whatever they were doing all day, for the 12 hours that led up to them sitting in that seat, to them converting their mind into a show. And right. The MC's job is to get them into the mindset so when the feature comes out, they're ready for the feature. And then the feature guides them into the headliner set. That's why the headliner doesn't come out first, right? So, when you're doing, so a lot of times, people, they'll come out and they'll be good or perceived as really good, and they'll be moved out of the MC spot into a feature spot sooner than they should have. And then what happens is later, they'll get into a situation where they can't get out of it or they can't handle it because they didn't go through the training of being an MC. You can't, you can be as good as you can be, but you can't skirt the actual experiences. It's Malcolm, I don't remember his last name, but he says you have to have 10,000 hours to become an expert and all that kind of stuff. So, so it's like if you skip being an MC, if you skip all those bad experiences, if you skip all those uncomfortable experiences, then you don't know how to handle them properly later, or you're learning them at the wrong time because you shouldn't be learning it as a feature, right? You should have already been mastered of that. Yep. So it's just one of those things where, you kind of take it. So the thing I learned from that third show, I walked out and it was an interesting quote. There was a show called, I think it was called Studio 64. It was when 30 Rock came out, and then Matthew Perry was like in this Alan Sorkin longer version. I think it was called Studio 64. It was like a behind the scenes Saturday Night Live type show. That was the idea. That came out at the exact same time as 30 Rock. And there was a scene where one of the actresses says, I don't know what happened. And in the rehearsal, I got the laugh. And then when we did it for the taping, I didn't get the laugh. No one laughed. And then Matthew Perry explains that's because what she was doing, she was reaching for salt or something, or asking for the salt or something. And so the way he explained it was, he says, well, in the dress rehearsal, you were asking for the salt. And then during the tape performance, you were asking for the laugh. And so there's like a subtle difference. Is like when you say something and the laugh is the after effect. If you're trying to get the laugh, that's when you're going to come off as desperate, or the audience doesn't find you authentic. And like third time I stepped out, I was expecting them to laugh. The first two times I went on stage, I had no idea anyone was going to laugh. I'd never really done this in front of a live audience before. So the excitement of me just saying words and then hearing something come back. And then the third time I did it, I expected the laughs. I go, oh, I'm doing this and this is going to bring me those laughs. And so I said it and then my timing was wrong and I didn't do it the same way. And so no one laughed. And so I learned that like it's the mindset of how you deliver something and put it out there. You have to get really, really good at being consistent with doing that over and over again, so that the reaction you get back is the same every time, and hopefully a laugh. So, sorry, that was a long answer.
No, it was amazing because you actually touched on so many different things, and one of them I liked was that when you talk about it's like a teachable moment. You got to learn. First off, people have to keep in mind, you have to have your mindset prepared to accept some sort of failure and then, be willing to learn from it, where so many people give up, or you give up easily. And so first you approached it, the right way. If you had any kind of failure, then you learned from it and continued to do it over and over again. And, I'm sure you had to keep evolving and coming up with new stuff too, but, it kind of gives me a little different sort of inspiration. You can convert it to personal development, to exercise, whatever. You have to make mistakes in order to get better. So no, I appreciated it. You did. That was a very good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your podcast. You were winner, top 25 indie podcasts from Indie Pods United. And then you've got a really nice rap sheet, if you will. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more about all that.
Yeah, sure. The podcast was one of those things where I'd actually bought everything in 2017, and I was going to do a podcast, and I was really excited to do a podcast. Everyone's like, "You should do a podcast." I'm like, "All right," but I didn't really know what. It's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to share your voice. It is to commit to that. And, but I was going to do it. I invested in everything. I bought like a little mixer and all these cords and all these wire and everything. And I had everything. I had everything all set to do it. And it was going to be social media based because I was really into social media, and it was about, you know, how to get stuff to go viral, and it was to be called Viral Intentions. And it was a kind of a play on the movie Cruel Intentions, you know, with Sarah and Michelle Gellar, and you know, so Viral Intention. I thought that was cute. And so it sat on my desk for years. My wife yelled at me, like literally years. And so you can picture like my desk with all these wires and the mic and all that kind of stuff. And then she made me throw it in a box, and I made it into the basement. And then COVID kind of started, you know, hit around March, right? So now we're 2020 though. And I couldn't find the box. And then finally I found the box. Then I couldn't put everything together. I couldn't put the wires together. I'm illiterate when it comes to inputs, outputs, and all that kind of stuff. You know, when it comes to my car, I put the key in, I turn it. If it starts, we're good. If it doesn't, I don't know what to do. So my friend came over, Nate Armbruster, a very funny comedian, and he's good at that stuff. And so he set it all up. And then the rule is nobody goes near Dad's setup. And so now it's March 2020, maybe it's like April. And now it's probably the end of April. And I had created a professional intro, outro. Like I had everything ready to go in 2017. You know, I had a logo and art, everything ready to go. But now it's the middle of the pandemic. People are locked up. People are dying more. People are dying every day. And it's a worldwide disaster. And here I am. I'm ready to start my podcast again. And then I realized probably not a good time to start a podcast called Viral Intentions. Right. So I'm like, oh crap. And like, I was like, so then I had to like, and then I was talking to my brother who he does a lot of business focused podcasts, and he's like, just name it after yourself and you can do whatever you want. You're not pinned into anything. And, so I said, all right. So I named it the Jeff Dowskin Show. My daughter's a designer. She made a logo. I actually hired the same guy to redo the opening. I rewrote the opening and closing, and had the same guy do it because I really liked his voice. And I think like it's important to have a real good start. And so once I had it going, I decided, I think it was over Memorial weekend, the end of May. And I think I'd heard, though I didn't know for sure, for iTunes, you needed 3 episodes to be in iTunes. And so I sat down, I did the first episode, which is just me, like for 12 minutes. Originally they were just 15-minute episodes. And so I just sat down, I interviewed a friend of mine who has a cool app called Answers RN. And then I'm up another buddy of mine, Bob Phillips, who I had just been on his show, the Sal and Bob Show, with Nate as well. And that sort of gave me the confidence to do it. Like I was a guest on their show, and then I'm like, okay, I can do this. And so then I recorded 3 episodes and I put them out, and then I just released my 32nd episode. So I do one a week. And so yeah, so it's like one of those things where it's like, when you really want to do something, sometimes you just have to, it has to be the right trigger. Everything has to, I think, be right. I think the reason I didn't start it in 2017 as Viral Intentions was the social media angle maybe didn't light my fire as much as the new concept behind the Jeff Dowskin Show, which still has social media. I do a social media tip, like in the beginning of every episode, but it's just a quick tip. It's like a 2.5 minute thing tops, where I just kind of share something cool that I know, and then you can go Google it and figure out the rest, right? Mm-hmm. And but then it's also like, one of my passions. I love going to Comic-Cons, and I love I go to Comic-Cons and I love getting the autographs and meeting the celebrities. My office, the walls of my office is just all. I had bought all matching frames on Amazon and then hung everything up. So it's just everything. It's just my autographs. Once my wife let me gave me the okay to decorate this office. And so that's important. Don't ever do it without asking.
Yeah.
And then, and so, so to be able to talk to kind of, actors and people who've been in movies that I know, or TV shows, or authors that have written cool books that I've liked, kind of, so it's one of those things. And then I started reaching out to comedians that I've worked with over the last 18 years. And lo and behold, I think 90% of them said yes. And so I just, started recording, and I'm like, hey, how'd you get Jackie the Joke Man Martling on your show? I'm like, I worked with him. I just shot him an email. He's like, sure, buddy, I'll do your show. It's like, I'm like, my wife was like, really? You emailed? I'm like, well, you could say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I guess that's a good lesson too. I mean, you can always ask, right? I know in life, like everyone's always said that, it's like, it's hard on some things, right? It's like, but it's like, if you don't try, you're no better off than you were not trying, right? I mean, Jackie the Joke Man wasn't on my show. If I didn't ask him, he still wouldn't have been on my show.
Yeah.
But by asking him, I raised the odds. He ended up being on my show. But if he hadn't, but then he would have ruled it out, not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, so it's always worth it to kind of try. It's funny. It's like most people either don't respond at all, or they say yes, usually very positively. Because I think people, no matter how high pedestal you put them on, when they're asked to do something, they still really, they're still honored to be asked. They still are excited to be asked. And, some people, I've had maybe 3 no's, but they weren't no's. 2 were, well, I'm really busy right now, maybe in a few months, which is a no, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then another one, which was my favorite, was, let me check my calendar. I'm like, oh, you're just going to randomly check a calendar? Okay, yeah, why don't you go check that calendar? And for the record, for the viewers listening, it's been 2 months since he's been checking his calendar for 2 months. So, and this is a guy that I knew. So sometimes it's weird. Sometimes it's like, sometimes it's the ones that, some of these people I haven't worked with in 14, 15 years. You know what I mean? So it's like, and what's nice is that they kind of remember, and so it's like, or they do a good job pretending. But some of them I've kept in touch with over Facebook, or they've probably seen my posts. I've seen their posts, that kind of thing. But, so I enjoy talking to them. And then, and so, so it's kind of cool. So it kind of mixes the whole pop culture, social trends, comedy, it's all that kind of stuff. I do a little shtick up front. I have this thing. I'm really into Twitter, social media, specifically Twitter, and I built an app called #Roundup, and I have a site on Twitter called #Roundup, and we do hashtag games. So anyone listening, you're free to follow at #Roundup on Twitter, download the #Roundup app. It's on Google or iTunes. It's free. Doesn't cost anything to play. And then like almost every hour, every day, I work with a great group of people, and there's different games every like kind of hour and a half. And basically the games are like writing prompts, marriage in 4 words, 2020 a movie, that kind of thing. So mashup games, that kind of stuff. And so, just real fun stuff. So if you're looking to tweet and have fun on Twitter and, kind of engage with the community, it's a great tool. And it's one of those things I'm kind of proud that one of my proud accomplishments.
Very good. That was on my agenda. So you segued right into your own segue of the segue of that. So that was great. So I also was kind of looking through your cool stuff that's on your website, and there's some multiple comedy festivals on there where you were featured in those, and like, I'm thinking, what is like a comedy festival? I've been to a few music festivals, and there's hippies, and it's a 3-day event, and you have to go to a porta potty. But tell me what like a comedy festival is.
Generally, comedy festival is you send in a tape, Dating myself. You send in a VHS, or you say, and you send in a video, some kind of that represents your comedy, and it's basically like they put on a show. So like I went to the Laughing Skull one in 2011, and so it's basically, I don't remember the exact details. I'm just kind of making it up, but like it's 4 days of shows and showcases. So you apply, and maybe you're a male comedian, or you're the female comedian, or you're, it's just, I don't know, whatever type of categories they might have. And so they put all these shows together. So they'll get 1,000 comedians, they'll pick 50, and then those 50 will do the shows throughout the week. So then people buy tickets to the shows, and usually they're also involved in some kind of contest where, you're just best of the festival or something like that. And so it's kind of just just an entertainment weekend where the people running it handpick the talent that's in it. And so I did some of those. I always struggled. I did contests early on. I won my fair share of contests, but they never made me feel good, even though I was winning. And it was like the whole concept of hitting comedians against each other. It's never like the greatest, feeling. It's kind of like when you watch Last Comic Standing. It's like, all those comedians are some of the best in the field, and like they're asking the public to pick which one's best, and it's like you can like them all. Mm-hmm. There isn't one person who does comedy who's the best at comedy. It's to the same person. Everyone you could show 10 comedians to the same 10 different people, and their rankings will all be different of why they liked who they liked. And so, it's entertainment. So it's just the way it is, but it's, so those, that's kind of like what a kind of a festival is. It's usually you pre-qualify, and then you're part of a series of shows.
Oh, well, it still sounds pretty cool to go to see a bunch of different shows. So
they're totally fun. For the audience and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, because you're seeing like really good talent. And
okay.
So yeah,
cool
for sure.
So I have an interesting question for you, but if you could try to tell me one of your most favorite moments in your career.
One of my most favorite?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have it. It's I know which one. I know it. So I haven't seen a contest. I'm totally contradicting myself, but it was during a contest, but it wasn't because I won the contest. It was something that happened during the contest. So we were there. It was this big radio, like a legend in our area, the Detroit area, Dick Purtan and Purtan's People. It's like really big name. And like anytime a huge comedian comes into town, they would always go on this person's show. And his wife had cancer, and they were doing a big fundraiser. And so they had a thing where, they wanted all the open micers to send in, or just the comedians in general to send in tapes. And they were going to pick 4 people to open the show. And it was sort of going to be, actually, I didn't even know it was a contest, to be honest with you. I thought it was just they were letting 4 of us showcase for a few minutes at the beginning of this show, which had Tim Allen, Kathleen Madigan, Michael Costa, who's now on The Daily Show, and Greg Warren, and probably a couple other people I can't remember. But it was a big name show. I mean, just Kathleen Madigan and Tim Allen alone. And this was like Tim Allen's big return to stand-up comedy. He hadn't done stand-up comedy in a long time. So the show was a big deal in that sense.
Wow.
So I submitted, and I got picked to be one of the, actually 3. I think there was 3 of us that got picked. And I didn't know till actually I got there that one of us was going to be a winner and go to Cancun. So I didn't know it was a contest. I really thought it was just a thing. And you know what I mean? I knew that it was a contest to get on the show, meaning you had to submit and get picked. But I didn't know that of the 3 of us, it was then going to be a contest literally to that night. And so I ended up going 3rd. And when you're 3rd, there's some advantages to going later because 1, you can read the crowd, you can know things that the people who went first don't know, especially when it's a contest. Okay, because now I'm in contest mode, right? And the guy before me, he's like, I'm like, hey, Steve, are you going to do that UPS joke? And he's like, yeah. And I said to him, do you mind if I tag your joke when I go up? And he said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And the second he said, yeah, sure, go ahead, I'm like, I knew I won the contest right there. And I felt bad about asking, but I asked.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to do it. If I had done it, if I tagged his joke and didn't ask him and won, then that would have created some animosity. So I asked him. And I'm not saying it didn't create animosity anyway, but I did ask permission to do it. So he gets up, he goes something about it. It's a joke about the UPS guy and having an affair with his wife or something like that. It's a silly joke. So I get out there and my opening line is, hey, I've got a great day job. I'm Steve's UPS guy, right? Brings the house down, down. Like I'm 5 seconds in and I've destroyed this audience. It's like to the point where the judges literally stopped the show. I remember this like it was yesterday. Kathleen Madigan says in the microphone, she stops the show, she interrupts me and says, I just want to say what a balls, I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but like balls move that was, because that could have gone really bad, right? I mean, like, right? But what she doesn't know is I've done this, I've followed Steve many times. And like, I've done that tag many times. I've already done this so many times. You know what I mean? That's why I knew it was like, that's why I knew it was, so it was like, and then I finished my set, boom, like it was just, because when you're doing like 3 minutes, you don't do full jokes, or at least I wasn't doing full jokes. I was doing like jokes right to a hard punchline, and then I'd move on to another joke. So it was like kind of rapid, boom, 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 boom. And I kind of just destroyed. It was great. And then I won a trip to Cancun, and it was funny. I remember that it was like $100 to upgrade to first class. I upgraded to first class because it wasn't costing me anything otherwise, right? So it was nice. We flew down, me and my wife, first class. But like the problem was when we got to Cancun, it was basically like a spring break. Like if you were 18 and you went to this part of Cancun, and this was the hotel you could afford because you're 18 and this is all your parents would pay for, that was the hotel I was in. And it was like right on the strip, right next to like Senior Frogs. If anyone's been there, they know what I'm talking about. And it was just like, it was the worst hotel. I mean, it was nice being there. The weather was beautiful. But then I think I got sick, and I think I ate seafood, like oysters or something. And then I spent an entire day vomiting. And I remember because I was watching, I'm sitting there, puking my guts out. My wife is so mad at me because now she's stuck in this shitty hotel room in beautiful Mexico, in Cancun. And it's like so beautiful out. And I remember the only thing on TV was Heroes. Do you remember that show, Heroes?
Yep.
Okay. So this is season 2 though, where the guy Hero goes to Japan, right? Well, in America, he's in Japan and the subtitles are in English, right? But I'm not in America. I'm in Mexico. So I'm sitting there puking my guts out. The only thing on TV and the subtitles are in Spanish. And so it's like, I can't, nothing's working out for me. I'm just like, so serves me right for winning that way. But anyway, but that still was a highlight. And actually, it formed one lifelong friendship, or a long friendship. The guy, if someone were to go to the Jeff Dowskin show and kind of dig back to some of the earlier episodes, I interviewed someone named Big Al Muscovitz, and he was one of Dick Purtan and Purtan's people. He was one of Purtan's people, and he was there that night, and was one of the judges, and we remained friends all this time, and he was on my show, so that was cool.
Oh yeah, that was very good. You wrapped that up very nicely.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So this is one other question that we like to ask most of our guests, if you will. what is one thing, and this could be in your entire life, but one thing that you are most grateful for?
Most grateful for? I think, that's a good question. I think of recent, again, and I don't say this, I say this not, with all due respect to anyone who during this COVID has had any, people get sick and all that kind of stuff. So, but for me personally, it was my family. When you have kids, it's like you never think about them. You grow up and you leave your house, but you never think of it as I just left my parents' house, right? You don't think of it from their point of view, right?
Yeah.
So, my kids had both. My oldest was in college, and my youngest was, so we weren't a family union anymore, like meaning like under the same house, and so it sort of just brought and of all the time that I've worked and had to then juggle my family's always been great about the comedy, but that took me away from the house a lot, and plus a day job and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of like from March to March, April, May, June, probably July, August, I guess. And before they went back to school in September where they had apartments. But, it was a family unit again without any of those distractions. And, I'm thankful for that kind of extra time that allowed me to focus and be full time kind of as a family, because we were always home, didn't have places to go. If I was doing a podcast, that's an hour, it wasn't like gone for 9 hours a day type thing, like during the 9 to 5 work day. So in my personal life, that was an extra, I guess, bonus that, once things clear up, that'll never happen again. And so, it was nice to have it for a short period.
Yeah, I like that. I know that COVID does affect people differently all over the world. But, one common message just in life in general too, though, is to try to find as much, gratitude or things you can be grateful for, especially if you're going through, a difficult time. So, I appreciate what you say, because it really, you should try to find something to focus on that's positive and that you can be grateful for, and so you really wrap that up nicely too. This is a great interview.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just kind of catch me off guard a little, that's why I like our podcast is usually, so I explain it as raw and organic, because I like to learn with the listener, and it makes it more reactive, and the questions are more, I have some written down, but most of them are emotional. They come right out. So when people say stuff like that, it almost catches me off guard, because it just makes me, I like to stop and reflect. That's in my nature, especially being all Mr. Positive and stuff like that. So thank you so much for all this. It was really great to talk to you and to hear your perspective on, so many different contexts, if you will.
Oh, my pleasure. I had a really good time hanging with you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, yeah, definitely. And like I said, usually my wife Catherine's with us, but she had to go check out her brother and his coming out of retirement, coaching boys basketball in high school and all that. But I know he's pretty stoked about it. So hopefully they do good. And I wish you could have kind of virtually, in a sense, met both of us, but this was really good. So is there anything that you think we missed or you want to touch on before we rock and roll?
No, I think that was good. It was good.
Perfect.
You've emotionally exhausted me. So good job.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Well, why don't we real briefly enter what I like to call the shameless plug zone, and you can tell people, give a recap of who you are, your podcast, how to find you. If you want to talk about Crossing the Streams, I think that was every Wednesday. Just give a little quick plug to end it, and we're good to go.
Sure. Thank you. Jeff Dowskin, comedian, award-winning podcaster. Please, I invite everyone to check out the Jeff Dowskin Show, jeffdwoskinshow.com. But you can also get to it via the URL, jeffisfunny.com, because I know you probably can't spell Dwoskin, and that's fine. That's fine. So jeffisfunny.com has, you can play any episode from there, and you can click, you can go on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, subscribe. Please subscribe to all of our podcasts. And then, live every Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern on the YouTube channel, the Jeff Dowskin Show YouTube channel, or Facebook, which is /JeffIsFunny. You can find it there. And that's it. That's a fun show, too. If you're looking for great TV suggestions, we have guests and special guests and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be fun. And I think that's it. Yeah. Everyone download every episode of the podcast. That'll be really helpful. Thanks.
Yes, do that for both of us, please. Well, no, you did a great job. Obviously, you're experienced yourself, and you've had a lot more years of public speaking, being a stand-up comedian. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with me and the Positively Midwest listeners. We appreciate you. So thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. All right, everybody. So that was Jeff Dowskin. Hopefully I said that correctly. Anyways, I really appreciate Steve Joyner hooking us up. And, we've been getting some pretty cool guests. We've got more coming up here later. So I think there's a lot of lessons that you can pull off of this episode, even though, that's what I like about how we talk about so many different people. Whether it's a comedian, it's a actress in her film debut, whether it's someone who was in the military, or all these different walks of life. And what's really important is that you realize everybody, no matter what, no matter how they look or they act in life, everybody's dealing with something. And you have to take a step back. You've got to do some analyzing, and you got to continue to evolve. You've got to continue trying. You have to continue putting in the work, doing the action. You have to do these things in order for yourself to continue to grow. As you grow, you stay positive, be positive. That helps. Okay? So, appreciate, again, Jeff jumping on here. Be sure to check him out. We'll put him in all of our, on our website and all that. And then we'll put it on the description that goes into the podcast. So hopefully you enjoyed this solo episode with just little Steve Jurens and as Catherine is checking out the bro law. So anyways, thank you everybody for all your support and listening. And why don't we close this little baby out? Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for listening to the Positively Midwest podcast. Our hope is to inspire, engage each other's thoughts, and leave you with some great advice. Be sure to join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram at Positively Midwest Podcast. Make sure you like, comment, share, and screenshot our podcast with all your cool friends. Every little bit helps. We are on most all major platforms, and you can stream it on our website at positivelymidwest.com. Thank you. And as always, please always stay positive.